Oh, hello guys. Hello guys. There you go. That's the way you start your classes. How are you doing?
Excellent.
I'm also doing good. Thank you for asking me back. That's the other thing that I say in my classes every single day. And at the end, I don't know if they learn my class, but they learn manners. That's very good. So anyway, I'm going to be talking about, you're late. What can I do? So hurry up, just because of the food. Anyway, so I'm going to be talking a little bit about project-based active learning and then some more things that I do also in the class. And because I couldn't be less than the rest of the presenters that I have been seeing, so we're going to start, well, first I'm going to start with acknowledgement because I'm going to forget at the end. And just quick acknowledgements to UCF, Melody Bodom, Melissa Dagley, Florida Consortium Metropolitan Universities, Michael Preston, Ted Greenberg, Latoya Hodge, Silvia Pulido especially because she was all the time with us during the whole time. And I know the other universities also have their counterparts like Kevin, for example, and ISIS. But anyway, there you go, class activity, because this is active learning class. Use your clickers, please. You should have clickers over there. So which one of the following statements is correct? And by the way, your clickers mean your hands. I don't have clickers in my class, so use your hands. I'm gonna let you see the questions, and then I'm gonna ask A, B, C, D, and please raise your hand if you agree with that. It's only G. I mean, there you go. So which one of the following statements is correct? And I'm going to tell you soon. What is SPI? This is a student perception of instruction. This is your evaluation, in other words, from the students. Okay, I think you have sufficient time. If you point your clickers to the screen, please. Point your clickers to the screen. And let's give them 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Processing. There you go. Those are the answers. What is H? I didn't want to embarrass you in front of everyone now and asking you which one, because that's what I do in my class. I actually put the questions, and maybe the answer is not there, right? Because those are basically some of the very known misconceptions about active learning. None of them is correct. So active learning, first of all, it doesn't involve always group activity or group work because you can do discussions in the whole classroom, and that's also a very valid technique. It's not just about the students having fun, although if they have fun, it's better, but that doesn't mean that. I don't think definitely it's about taking a step back. Actually, it requires that you step forward a lot and participate and moderate the class, and your SPIs will increase. That's not entirely true all the time. So sometimes even will decrease, but then eventually, it will go up again, and once you get it correctly. So forget about that. What is active learning? Once again, is a student participation engagement part of active learning? Do you think that's active learning? At what point engagement becomes, or participation becomes active learning? If you know that answer, please tell me, because do you know the answer, please? Because I don't know it.
I tend to say when students are generating some evidence of thinking.
But the fact that they are just participating and engaged with the class, that doesn't mean that it's active learning. That means that they are just involved with the class and the situation is correct. So there's a huge debate about this one. I just wanted to bring it for you for showing. There are 2 definitions that I found, which, yes, in my opinion, they are fairly good, not complete. And I know that most of you are familiar with this meta-study that he did, and it's not from him only, it's from a bunch of papers and definitions that he worked with. But it somehow involves activities, discussions opposed as passive listening to an expert, and higher order thinking all the time. I will add something else though. First of all, not every class activity that increases student satisfaction is active learning. We already discussed that. Second, in my opinion, active learning requires something that I call active teaching also, because it's not just the student trying to learn, but you have to really, really, really design those activities with a purpose. It's not any activity. You have to design the activity that follows actually a clear instructional objective, and that has to produce somehow, some type of measurable outcome, positive, of course, because it doesn't, otherwise it doesn't have any meaning. That's me, once again. And that part is not very easy to do, because for that part you actually have to really collect data and show that what the activity that you are doing is following or is doing the, that's not me, okay. What do I do in my classes? What do I use in my classes? Lectures, yes, I do lectures in my class. I don't think lecture is bad, but not all the time lectures. Now, there are lectures, and there are lectures. There are different types of lectures. Lectures have to be interactive lectures all the time. You have to keep the students, and they have to follow a purpose once again. Constructivism is always present. One of the things that I found that really, 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 really is important is relating the subject to the different majors that you have. For example, my class is EGN 3310. We're gonna, the class that I'm referring now, not my class. This is engineering analysis statics. This is a gateway course for engineering, and it's basically the first engineering class they are taking. And every engineering take the class. So when I do that, for example, I had computer. Now we don't have computer science, and computer engineering is not part of the, they don't take this class anymore because the catalog changed. But when I had computers, for example, what I'm going to use this class for? Well, you're going to use this class for, look at this application, really simple application. You have the chips, you have the legs of the chips. They are bent. What they are bent? Because they behave exactly like a cantilever beam. And you are going to learn how to do that in this class. And you have to design it for that purpose. You also can do software to help the rest of the students and yourself to do this, for example, to work with this class. Then you have electrical engineers. Electrical engineers, there you go. They were the first ones. Why do I have to do statics? Look, this is electrical. So it's not that you have to learn how to do everything, but you have to have a better understanding of how things are working. And then you have also mechanical, and then you have mechanical, aerospace, civil. All of those are examples. Materials, for example, these are called nanotrusses. Those are really 10 to the negative 9 units nanotrusses. And they are used for vests, and they are really, really strong material. And they learn how to calculate these type of things in that class. So you make it more interesting for them. And even people that are doing multidisciplinary, or they like, for example, medicine, we do a lot of projects relating nature, relating prostheses, and that type of situations that they can use in the class. Demonstrations and model is a must, especially if you are in an engineering class. This is what the book says. Okay, but this is what I show. And then I show real life situations that this and that are the same thing. But they are very, they only look at these arrows here, and that's what they want to calculate. But those arrows are just arrows, that's nothing. This is the tool that you use for solving the real life situation. When we talk about trusses, those are trusses, for example, yes, they have this type of drawings and simulations, but we use real life models created by them, by the way. And then I show some practical applications in real life. Humor and games, that always work. And they were talking about video games today, so that's amazing. So for example, one of the things that I do in the class, there is a really nice game, addictive, by the way, that's called Cargo Bridge. I don't know if you have seen it or you haven't seen it, but I made them play with that. And they don't complain because it's a video game. So they use that at home, and they play with that video game at home. And usually video games, most of the time, they are following real physical and engineering properties. The engine is very accurate. And I know video games that they are used, for example, for mudslides. And there are video games that are used for emergency and evacuation of persons out of the places. And those are based on video games. And they are researching that. But for example, I show that little video game, and of course I lose the first time, and the idea of this game is that you have a bridge, and you have to build a bridge, and you have two types of materials, and then you have a budget also that you have to keep. But the idea is that you build a bridge like that, and then suddenly you start rolling elephants in that bridge. And the first time that I played this, it was like 6 hours straight, and I was still playing that video game. But then the next class, for example, I come and I show that. And then I say, can you tell me, please, which one of those trusses is unstable? They don't know still, because I haven't explained them what instability or how do you determine the instability in the trusses. But they play the video game. And they come and they say, this I know is not going to fail because I tried something like that. This I know is there. This one, it looks weird, but how you can fix it? Well, I put something there. And now it's stable. And then they go to this one, usually always happen like that, and they say, yeah, I need that I have to put something there. However, I spend too much money, once again refer to the video, to the game, I spend too much money if I put 2 of those here because I don't need 2. I only need 1. So you can take that one out, and that's going to work also perfectly. And that they learn that just by playing a video game. Of course, the whole class is not about playing video games. That video game, for example, allows me to introduce them to more professional software that they can use for modeling now and getting budgets and SolidWorks and AutoCAD and other type of professional software for modeling bridges. Open-ended questions and brainstorming. Listen, that's exactly what it sounds in my class, by the way, when I have one of those. So brainstorming, class activity, groups of 2, you're going to do, and you're going to do this. I'm not making you to do groups of 2. This is the way the class works. Now you're going to be talking about this, and then I show something, and they are discussing for 5-10 minutes, and then after that, I ask questions about what they did. This is, sometimes in my class evaluation, some of the comments, no, I'm exaggerating. I received that once or twice in 10 years that I have been at UCF. And I tell them every time, he wastes time talking about real life experiences. And I make fun of them because I say, listen, everything else you get from the book. Real life experiences is really what you get from the practitioner. So then I show things like that, for example. And if you want, we can play. I wasn't intending to play with you, but imagine that you have that situation over there. First of all, what do you imagine is here? I'm just teaching you my class the way I teach it in this moment. What do you think is here with those cables over there? Nothing? What is that? A giant hot air balloon? A tower, a pole, a telephone pole, electricity pole. I don't know, something, right? Something's here. So the topic of the class in reality is how can you calculate the resultant force acting on the bracket? This is what the class is asking, but this is not what I'm interested in them to know right now. So I'm asking them, in your opinion, which component of this assembly is the most important for that structure? Go. F3. And then I'm going to ask immediately, why? But not yet. F3, which one? Which one? Which one? Come on. Which one?
I say the origin of that.
The origin of that here because it's the origin. Okay. And then I'm going to ask you later, why? Because I'm not going to stop there. And then the other one comes and say, no, F1. Why F1? Because F1, the angle is more, it's more acute than the other ones. And when you calculate the resultant force here, or the horizontal component, that is the one that is going to come from the wind, that horizontal component is going to be, that's the student talking. And I say, okay, why F4? No, I think it's F4 because of the different reason, because of the, why F3? Why F3? What do you think is going to happen if F3 breaks?
There will be more stress on it.
I'm telling you exactly the way I teach every single one of my classes, like that. I'm not kidding. I didn't prepare that only for this. This is the way I teach. And then what do you think is going to happen? Well, if F3, you know what, in my opinion, is going to happen? Probably nothing. Why? because there is something that is called force redistribution, and the other cables are going to take the force that F3 is not taking, because you never calculate that exactly as they support. You always have something that is called factor of safety. How is it called? Factor of safety. What is factor of safety? Well, this is the factor of fear. This is the fear factor. You know the material can resist this. However, you say, no, I'm going to put 50% more or 40% more. And suddenly, I'm teaching them mechanics of materials, which is the next class. Now I tell them, okay, let's assume that F1, F2, F3, F4, this is perfect. Those are made of adamantium or titanium, or I don't know what material they are made out of. But what happens if not the connection, but the bracket fails, the whole thing fails? What about this is perfect, this is perfect, but these little connectors here fail, which is the common failure for that type of a structure. Oh, how can they fail? Well, imagine that you have a bar of Play-Doh. Have you played with Play-Doh? I know that some of you are still playing with Play-Doh. That's what I tell them. I have the script here in my mind. But imagine that you have a bar of Play-Doh over there, and then you pull it. What is going to happen? It's going to be cut in two. It's going to shear. Why? Because this is shear stress that is happening there. That shear stress, by the way, we're going to learn it in chapter 7. And this is only in chapter 2. And I'm talking already what they are going to learn in chapter 7. What if everything is perfect, but suddenly in this part, the whole thing goes out? Why do you think that bar can get out of that concrete? Give me a reason, quick, because I have to move. Mechanical engineers.
Maybe it was not deep enough.
Are you a mechanical engineer? No. Just kidding. Because it's not deep enough. Oh, it's not deep enough. And what does it have to do with that?
Yeah, probably they need a perpendicular force to stop it to get out.
And that's what the students start saying, you know. And then you go, and I say, you know what happened? Many things, but there is something that if that bar doesn't have the sufficient length or the concrete is poor enough, they don't develop the adherence. You know what adherence means? Yes, well, it's kind of a stick together. Okay, but what is adherence for you? Oh, you mean like friction force? That's why you learn it in physics, friction force. And now you see a real application of something that it was in physics, that I'm not talking about any professor, but in my case, professors that taught them physics, they didn't tell them what force you're going to use that. So now they see, oh, friction, yeah, the concrete and the rebar or the steel didn't develop the sufficient friction. Oh, that's why when I see the bars, they come like with indentations. Exactly, that's why when you see the bar, it's not smooth. It comes with some engraving to facilitate the friction, which, by the way, is all around the bar. It's not just longitudinal like you saw. And they are connecting things. And yes, of course, at the end of the class, I had to sit for 3 hours, because this class is in 150 to 150 students in the classroom, and I'm walking everywhere. I use presentations, for example, when I go to lecture 7, that was like 2 lectures ago. I'm not going to put the animations of everything, but I say, what do you remember about moment? Wait, the moment? And then I say, oh, moment, yeah. This is a brief instant of time. And by the way, I have that over there. I click and I say, a brief period of time. Yeah, but that's not it. I know that somebody out of 200 is going to say that. So I have it in the click prepare. So they say words, and usually those words are those words. And I say, yeah, but you don't know the definition, even though you study moment. Did you study moment? Yes. When? Physics. Oh, but we call it torque after then. It's the same. It's a moment. So then I say, imagine this is you here, and then follow me. You're going to push it here. What is going to happen? Oh, it's going to try to tilt in that direction. Okay. That rotation, they say that rotational effect produced when you apply the force here is this and this and this and that. What happens if you push it here? Oh, it's going to go in the reverse part. Why? Because it's going to go in the reverse part. That's what they say. And what happens if you come here and you press it stronger? Well, then this is going to happen. No? And then, of course, they laugh, but they start understanding. After that, I say, okay, give me the definition for moment, because I'm not going to give it to you. And they start messing up. And that's good. I like when they mess up, because we can correct. But all the words that are over there, and when I'm teaching this part, I'm telling them, you see, when the force is applied there, there's that rotational effect, and then some of them start catching, and the whole class is participating, and we do the definition, which, by the way, I say is a very real and really new concept, developed by Archimedes. And then, who was Archimedes? What do you remember Archimedes for? And Eureka, yeah, the density is the thing. And then you teach a little bit more than statics. Now, I do class activities unannounced, of course, because you need to have attendance. And you keep attendance like that. Not only attendance, you need the attendance, you need the focus, because I tell them, we're going to have a class activity, I don't know when, at the beginning, at the end, at the middle of the lecture. Could be about what we covered last time, or could be about what I just explained to you. And usually it comes like that. Did you understand what I explained? Yes, class activity. If they don't understand, I explain again, until they get it. They can ask questions, because they know that after that it might come a class activity. And then they work in groups, usually in groups of 2. This is the type of the clickers that I did with you. And then they start and say, okay, which one of the following is a scalar quantity? And then, who say A? A. Who say B? B. Who say C? C. Who say D? D. Why A? Oh, because force, we just covered, right? Force is what? Mass times acceleration. So mass is the scalar, force is the vector. And then they know, wait, do you weight in that direction? Or you weight in one direction in particular? Oh, damn, yes, it has a direction. Then it's not a scalar, it's a force. And out of there, by the way, none of them is a scalar. All of them are vectors. But we go one after the other, after the other, after the other, and we clarify those concepts. Now, the other day I was class activity, and I did this 2-3 days ago, by the way, this particular one. I always do this, class activity, boom, after I explain the concept. But in this particular time, I saw the class that it wasn't getting it. And I don't want to do a graded class activity just to harm the students. So I say, you know something? This is them, this is working. This is just a portion of the classroom here working in pairs, because those rooms are not designed for other stuff, but in pairs they work good also. So they were working over there. And then I say, okay, now you are going to do, you are going to create a model of that thing. And you're going to go to whatever place you want to go in your house, use any material that you want to use, and you're going to create a model of that. And you're going to show me that your results correspond with the hand calculation. And this is them working with the projects. We don't have a lab for that class, but I made a lab for that class, unofficial lab, so they can apply what they learn. And they submit that with a video of themselves explaining what they did. And that the results for that, in this particular one, I haven't done it, but I do that in the whole class. And of course, I have like 100 videos of YouTube for them available, so they can watch problems, watch lectures, and a lot of things. Now, what I was supposed to come to talk here, it was about this collaborative-based homework and experiential learning homework. Those are the 2 main things that I'm very proud that I do in my class. First of all, well, teaching and learning engineering is very difficult. Large size classes, you know that, 150 students, 200 students. Purely traditional lecture base is not very good. This has been done at UCF and in both things. And of course, the class is engineering analysis statics. I ask myself these 2 questions: to what extent active learning problem-based homework improve student success, and how it affects the SPIs, not the SPIs, the engagement in the class and participation and the feeling of the students for the class. So I identify the class, initial study. For the initial study, I never start everything at the same time, and I never made it mandatory, because if I make it mandatory and I fail, then I'm messing up a bunch of people. So I try to start with a small group and see what happens, and then I go to the next step. So the first part is checking what is going to happen, replicate the study and compare results, and apply surveys to the students about the satisfaction and what they learned and what they didn't learn. Statics, 1,700 students per year, kind of. 150, 230, critical path to almost all engineering major, historically high fail pass ratio. This is just the classes, forget about that. And this is the failing rate for the past. I mean, I check it from fall 10 to summer 17. Those are data from the Institutional Knowledge Management from UCF. And the average passing rate is 58. Passing rate means C or better, so WDF is failing. And this is not even true because, you know, there are some exceptions here when you have some visiting lecturer that, but I don't want to talk bad about anybody, but it's about 50%. That means that 800 students fail that class every year. So something has to be done with that class. Just in fall, these are the statistics for fall 17. 55% of the students fail the class. I'm not talking about my class. I'm talking about all the sections. And my class is even helping that a little bit because it's not that dramatic as that my class. But look at that thing over there. So what I did is I went a couple of semesters, several sections, and I studied and I got the data of the exams, the questions that I ask in the exams, question per question, and I see what happened. And I combine these. I'm going to show you here in this part, for example. This is the combination. This is a sample of 585 students, 585 students. And this means the people that had the question right, and this means the people that had the question wrong. That particular question in that exam. Same here, same here, same here. And then out of that, I selected some of them, for example, this one. And I said, you know, this one and this one are not going to be that difficult for me to start introducing active learning to those and project-based homework. So I'm going to start with those for this part. And I offer a homework. And I'm going to explain you that. The second part, same thing. I analyzed the main topics that are asked in that exam. I combine them to the whole sample. And you can see here, these two are really, really high. This is really high also, and these are kind of. But this was very much difficult to model at that moment. Now I'm doing it also. But in that moment, that was very difficult. So let's see this one here. The teaching and assessment of this class, the teaching is lectures, class demonstrations, and online homework. That's the way the class is taught, usually. And the way the class is evaluated, you have online homework, you have 2 midterms, you have a final exam, and that's about it. That's the common syllabus for almost every other professor for that class. So this part may form part of the teaching and delivering of the information because this online homework is supposed to be for practice also, not only for evaluation. And this other part here is the assessment that you do in the class. It's part of the assessment, 20%, 50%, 30%, or whatever you do. But this part is fake. I mean, this online homework is fake, and that's what I'm fighting against, that part, because you know, you have check, you have solution manual, and they do not care. When I say they, I'm talking about a bunch group of students. They just care about getting the percentage, and that's it. And I tell them, I know you have the solution manual. Don't tell me, because I have to report you, but I know you have it. But don't use the solution, don't let the solution manual use you. Use it, because it's a good source of learning if you use it correctly. But if you just copy and don't learn, then it's not a good thing. So I was planning on changing, and that's what I said, the homework. Not entirely, but some part of the homework. And what I did is I assigned the same problem to every person in the class online. Mastering Engineering is the software. But then I offer that problem as an extra credit. Extra credit is peanuts. I mean, tiny amount of points. It's nothing. But they feel extra credit, oh, extra credit. And they have to model it, they have to work it, they have to compare the hand calculations with the real homework, and they have to make a video of themselves explaining it to me. And you know, when you have to explain something, you have to own it, right? Otherwise, you cannot explain it to somebody else. So that was the idea. This is me explaining in the YouTube channel, for example, this typical problem, which they have troubles all the time. 2 springs, 3 springs, and they see a spring over there and say, oh my God, springs. And then I say, listen, you can model that with rubber bands. I took some rubber bands from my drawer, and I started working. My videos are like live almost. I don't even edit the videos. I let all the bloopers and everything there. So I did that. I tell them how to do it, and then this is them. No, this guy did a better model than me. They use springs, real springs. So they do the springs, they do the hand calculations, they compare with whatever the online homework is, and they calculate percentage of errors and everything else. There are, for example, much more, technical people than me explaining this thing. They say how, they go over there, and this is another one, much more sophisticated than me. This is another typical example that even, because this is in YouTube, even the people that are taking the FE and the PE, they say, oh, thank you for the video, because they are using for studying. So this is the crane tilting, and I go beyond, more and beyond. The idea is that you put here some weight, and this thing starts tilting, and when this thing starts tilting, you can imagine that these tires are being lifted, right? So basically the reaction there is 0. How do you show that? Then I tell them, I put a scale over there, and when the scale marks 0, that's the point. However, you don't have a scale, you slide a piece of paper underneath in your model, and when the piece of paper can slide underneath that, it's because you don't have any reaction at that point. And this is them, they create their models wherever they want to, and however they want to. Look at that model, for example. Now, this is another, I think that this one, it's just there, you see, the type of model over there that they did. There's a guy explaining, I don't want to just show it. And this is, they use Kinex for that, and they use a different type of load. You see the slide of the piece of paper over there, just to show the concept. And look at that, a cereal box with, I don't know, what is that, a Stitch? From Lilo Stitch or Furby, I don't know. This is the weight that they put over there. And this one was using screws, and that's exactly the moment when it's tilting it, that thing. And you can leave this, doesn't matter. I mean, he's my friend. He's going to be happy that he's online.
We're sitting at 11.5 ounces of water. And this one measly little teaspoon should make this thing tip. Let's find out.
This is the last part of the video, of course. But he's crazy.
Huzzah!
How's that? So anyway, after they do that, then I go to see if that worked for something. Because I know they have fun, I know they did it, I know a couple of points in extra credit. But then I went to the midterms, and then I studied what happened over there. This bar represents the group that did it. Remember, it was voluntary. And this part represents the group that didn't do it. For every one of the sections, for every one of the semesters. What this means is that the people that actually did the extra credit, the active learning homework, 82% of them, or 83, had the question correct in the exam. That, not the same question, the same concept. Versus only 43, in the other group, 43% only had the question correct. And all of them were exposed to the same traditional homework. All of them. The only thing that I added was here, the people that did that online homework, that extra credit homework. Now, this is just the percentages, but I went beyond and I did t-test for every one of them just to show that the groups, I'm sorry, I'm really sorry because he's the expert in math. So if I mess up, don't say it, you tell me in private later. So, but I wanted to compare the grades distribution between the two groups just to see what happened, and definitely there was a high significance that the groups were different. They weren't the same grade distribution. And I did the same thing with the crane equilibrium, and you can see the same type of results. Look at the blue bar, 75% of the people that did it had it correct versus 40% only had it correct, the people that didn't do it. Now, and I did the same thing with this other one, and the situation repeats. However, as a good, thinker, and he was dying to ask me that question right now. I can see his face. What happened if the people that did the extra credit were the best students anyway, and they were going to perform better no matter what happened? Right? Because that can happen. The people that did the extra credit were the most improved students, the more interested students. And in that case, that study is worthless. And by the way, look who's saying that over there. But that's true. But that's true because I play that role in my own life. So Then I did something else. Then I did, okay, let me compare now the same groups, but not, this is the part of the question where the active learning was introduced, but these are the other questions in the exam, and how the two groups perform in the other questions that I never introduced anything. And the only one that shows actually correlation, not correlation, but significance is in the one that they did the homework. The other ones, the groups are similar, and as you can see, even in one question or several, they perform even worse. Maybe my homework is messing them up in the other question. I don't know. I have to check that part now. But you see, that happened, and that repeats in a second exam with every single one of the questions. The only one that shows significance is that one, the one that I introduced, the active learning. What time is it, please? 3. And I had to until 3, no, 3:15. So 15, no. I started like 2:20, so 3:20. Okay, good. And the other project, same thing. You see? Same thing. The only one that shows real significance is the one that I introduced, the topic. Now I'm doing that with every single topic in the class, and all the students. It's not extra credit anymore. Now it's part of the homework. I ask the students now, all of them, this is an anonymous survey, this is sometimes Qualtrics, sometimes somebody give the homework to them, I'm not in the classroom. This is what they say, 77% said that, well, better relations, my engagement increased, reinforce the teamwork outside the classroom, which I associate these 3 with the sense of belonging. That is something that is needed for the students, especially at that level. Now, connect classwork. My making a video of me explaining the projects, I was able to understand, evaluate, and present better the results. 90% agree and strongly agree. I think those results are really good, opinion-wise. And I throw this curveball, backwards to see if they were consistent with whatever they were saying in reality. And this is a waste of my time. Now it reversed, 94% say disagree or strongly disagree to that question. So this is going to be published now in the next ASE conference. So basically what I did here is that spring 2016, 2 sections, different topics, and then I repeated in fall. I did the problem-based homework, project-based homework, and I replicated and I got similar results. I added this now, trust them all. Gotta catch them all. So I'm sending in a how do you call that, treasure hunt through the university, and then they are gonna have to go, and they have an interactive map like this in their phones because it's the same map, and they ping the location where they see a truss, and they take a picture of the truss, and the important part is that they name the truss. I mean, naming doesn't mean that they call it Andrew or Pepe or no. What type of truss is this? It's a Howell truss, it's a Pratt truss, what type? And then in the exam, I will ask them the names of the trusses because they're important for them to know. The other one that I started also was, and of course, if you see me, if you see these titles, you can relate to me because those are very new video games. So dog hunt now is support hunts. They go across engineering building and they start taking pictures of every support, but they define the reactions in the supports. They say this particular support has this reaction, and this reaction. Why? Because in the exam, I noticed that they didn't know that. Now I'm evaluating these results. I don't have the data yet, but I had the data, but I didn't evaluate it. And I started this, which is one of the really difficult things to model, but I got a grant, and I'm going to tell you that later. Now they can model the 3D equilibrium, which they couldn't model before. And they provide the material for them. And in trusses, I got like 20 of these kits also for trusses. They can calculate it by hand now, and they can see what is the values, and they can calculate the hand calculations with the real actual results from that truss. That's one of the things. The other thing, in 15 minutes, and I have to cut it, of course, I published this in the American Society for Engineering Education, this last conference that they had. And this is something that I'm really proud of. I started this in 2013. It's called IDEAS. IDEAS stands for Interdisciplinary Display for Engineering Analysis Statics. And now we're going to have the 10th idea showcase, which I have data from all those events. About 3,000 students have done it so far, and they have produced more than 800 projects, about 900 projects, and presentations, and papers, and posters at UCF. Basically, same thing, 2 studies, but this time 12 sections, 19 sections, the replication, so it's a big amount of data. It's not just one section or one part of the section. And this is what was idea. When I started this project, forget it. I didn't start this project because I thought, oh, I'm going to do this active learning activity. No. I started this project because I felt the students needed the experience of doing something. And now I have been shaping it and perfecting it, of course, during the time. But it was with the idea of increasing creativity, teamwork of students, keeping the interest in graduate school, I don't know. And I'm going to post these slides so you can have access to them. They have to write papers, they have to create models, they have to prepare posters, they have to go to the event, and they have to defend it in front of judges. The whole thing, by professors and by graduate students. This is what I post. What are you going to do? These are some topics. You select the topic. I suggest some topics. These are groups from 2 to 4. You sign up for any group that you want to. I don't assign them. I give them some ideas related to the class, but their ideas are always better than mine, honestly. And I give them a task schedule, online group sign up, ideas approved by me in person in the template. That's the only thing that they have to do in person because we have to discuss a lot. Then they have to conduct a literature review and submit it online with 7 references at least, and abstract submission, and do the experiment, the testing, the final, everything is there. And this is kind of what the proposal looks like. They have to submit. I provide them the template. And this is the way the abstract looks like, and it goes back and forth several times also. But that looks like a conference abstract, actually. And that's the intention, that they start doing that. And then this is me stalking them when they are, building their projects, and that was me on the top of the stair of the atrium. And they go to the lab, the structures lab, they tested it, they write a paper, and then they presented it. And they defend it. If they get the first place, I give them medals, and I give them certificates. And you can leave this, don't worry.
The Ideas project was fantastic. It was a lot of
Of
hard
course,
work.
he's saying that because he has a medal.
Very cool experience, being able to apply everything that we learned in class and hands-on in projects. It was
I had tons of those. This is another one. Listen to the last one.
The application of actual engineering and research.
It was very interesting to learn about nature and how what we learn applies to Mother Nature.
I enjoyed it. I got to meet people, and the project was very informative, and I learned a lot about science.
I missed the question.
I missed the question. That was the event, by the way. That was the event happening over there. That was the first event, second or third, fourth, five, I don't know. And now we don't fit in the atrium anymore. Now we're doing it in the ballrooms. This semester I'm going to have about 600 students presenting. About 600 students. 150 projects or so. I don't know how we're going to fit, but the room is already reserved. Look at the names that they say. Look at that. Comparative macro-scale modeling the formation of a carbon nanotube structure. What do I know about nanotubes? I mean, nothing. But I guide them as much as I can. And they do their projects. These are the prototypes, several steps, right? But the preliminary models, let's say, these are some of the models they presented. Electrical engineers, there you go, electrical engineers. This is the typical thing that most of the civil select. They select the bridge, they build it, they test it, they use software, hand calculations, they have the numerical results. When this person, for example, proposed that project, I said, are you kidding me? Rapunzel, are you kidding me? And then they said, but let me pitch it to you. No, I'm not going to prove that, but let me talk. Okay, talk. We're going to study how many hairs per square inch have the average Nordic woman. Okay, you started good. Keep going. And we're going to study what is the a strength of one hair. And say, okay, that's good also, but you know that if you comb it straight or you braid it, the strength is different, right? Okay, we're gonna study different type of styles. Okay, that's good. And then I tell them, yeah, but unless Rapunzel is Arnold Schwarzenegger wearing a tutu or a costume, it's not gonna be able to pull the prints up. And they came with a system of pulleys to pull the prints up. So suddenly I'm not teaching Rapunzel, I'm teaching cables and pulleys in something they like. That was first place in one of the events, and I don't judge. I withdrew myself from and I recruit professors and everybody that I can blackmail, I select. And they go over there, and so maybe some of you are gonna be blackmailed this time. More projects, more projects, more projects, more projects. I don't know, aerospace. This is aerospace also. They build a wind tunnel and they prepare. I don't know how many projects are. Look at this project, for example. They did that. They modeled it in SolidWorks. They built it. They tested it. I don't know. They do really, really, really. This is just the code cycle of learning. And this is what they get. $2.50 medal. But it's not the $2.50 medal, right? They put it in their resume. You want to see that, go to LinkedIn or go to everywhere and put Idea Showcase UCF. And you're going to see people, and they say, oh, I had an interview in Lockheed Martin and Siemens, and the only thing that I could talk about was that because it's the only experiential thing that I have been doing. And it's good. Now, that's the motivation part. Now, the real data, which I don't have time, is this. Two groups, initial and replication, people that did it, people that didn't do it. That data is separated by gender, by position, junior, senior, and sophomore, junior, and senior. I only have a couple of freshmen, so that's why they are not there. And by ethnicity also, and by gender. And I did a chi-square between participant and not participant in both sides, and then group and group in the other parts to show that the groups were correct. I mean, they weren't biased somehow, and they didn't show any significant difference. Also, the chi-square analysis in here. And then I do the same thing. Student success in the class, meaning passing the class. These are the amount of students, percentage of students that did ideas and passed the class, 83%. This is the amount of students that didn't do it, the percentage in the group that didn't do it and passed the class, 48. Look at those impacts. And this data comes from the IKM. It's not my data, Institutional Knowledge Management. They provided me with that data. So I couldn't fake the data because it's theirs. And I did the same t-test just to compare again. And it didn't show anything. Now, I did also retention study for those students. And I follow the different cohorts for 4 semesters after the showcase, after the participation, and after what they did. And this is the first, the second, the third, and the fourth semester after that. And at the end of the fourth semester, 86% of the people that did ideas, that they were still in the College of Engineering, versus 74% of the people that didn't do it. So you have an increase here in retention, and that repeats everywhere. I mean, with every one of the cohorts, that repeats for the different semesters, the different years. So that's retention. Now, graduation rates, which is the other thing that I studied, this is a little bit more tricky because some of them, I mean, the first cohort was 2013, and this idea, they didn't give it to me like I wanted it, that group by group. I mean, they combine it, and it's more difficult, but even combining the data like they have it, for example, the sophomores that did the project, 51% graduated, and 31.93 didn't graduate by that time, but falls 16, and the same thing repeats with the other junior and senior students. And in the replication, you always see that people that did this, even though this doesn't show like that much of a difference, that in this case particularly is because you have students from fall 2015 and I'm checking summer 2017, so some of them don't have the time to graduate. So this is more important, for example, which is the sophomore, the junior level in that particular group, because they had the time to graduate. But anyway, you see the differences over there. On top of that, I prepare this for the students, the surveys, anonymous surveys. And these surveys are, you know what ABET is? Accreditation Bureau for Engineering and Technology. This is the organization that actually gives us the accreditation to teach engineering under them. And this is ABET, A through K, paraphrase. That's what it is, what they are asking. And the students say this, you see, increase my interest, 84, help me to improve my creativity. This other one, understand the theoretical concepts, improve my experience in multidisciplinary groups, building physical models, designing laboratory tests. And there is one that it wasn't part of my initial study, but it's really important, which is this one. 60% of the students agree or strongly agree that after doing that showcase, their interest in pursuing graduate education increased. And that's huge. Even if I get 20%, that's huge, because they're saying, oh, my interest increased by doing this. I have other, but I'm not going to show it, other data. And now I go to senior design, for example. And I apply surveys to senior design students, and I several questions asking them how this helped you to do the other one. And I have that data, which is very good also. Anyway, this is just the summary of everything. I showed some data. You know, the percentage of success in the class was 44 to 81% higher, depending what cohort you are studying. And the retention was between 11 and 13 percent points higher for the IDEAS students. And also, the data came from the IKM and Operational and Excellence Assessment, Office of Excellence and, what is that? Operational Excellence and Assessment, right? And the overall graduation rate reached up 13 points higher for the IDEAS participant. And the students say all of that about the showcase. This is the charts that I show you. Now, future work, I'm checking now the following courses. I'm checking dynamics, mechanics of materials, the courses that this is prerequisite. I already checked them. And there's a huge difference between the students that did it in these two classes. Huge difference, but I don't have the data to show you. Now, I check the effect on the represented minorities, and I'm not going to claim that that is helping the underrepresented minorities. I'm going to claim that that is helping everyone. But by helping everyone, the underrepresented minorities are being helped as well. There are other departments like physics, chemistry, and writing and rhetoric. They're going to start participating also now in the showcase, even though it's engineering. And if you want to, please talk to me, and we can start a new ideas in your university, because that's the idea. I know Principia College is doing it, and I know my university in Venezuela started doing it also. 3,000 students, 900 papers, several presentations, a paper, 3 more in preparation. And this is very important, because Melody especially asked me to talk about sustainability. How can you do that? How can you keep it? My department was helping me with $150 for that event. That's it. That pays for the medals, and that's it, and the certificates. And I really appreciate it. But now I applied to several awards. I got like $14,000 to QEP awards, and I got a technology fee grant for $60,000. And I bought, you have no idea how many materials that I show you over there that I'm going to start using over there. I got the technology fee grant based on that project. And this is still not, but I hope that soon, because I went through the first cycle and they say, yeah, it's good, but no. I applied to NSF grant for $600,000, so let's see what happened in the resubmission. References and questions. What time is it?
20.
There you go. Exactly 20. Yes, sir.